All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to Language Links today. Today, we're going to talk about visual schedules and why visual schedules are your superpower. Visual schedules are so powerful that they, in my mind, are a superpower. Visual schedules can help your children learn so many skills. And I am choosing to talk about visual schedules in Language Links because, of course, in Language Links, we focus on language development and promoting language skills. It's important for you to remember that visual schedules can help your children learn language. Visual schedules can help them understand language and can help them develop expressive language skills. So we're going to talk more about that today. And I hope that at the end of this hour, you will feel that you can implement visual schedules in your home. If you're a teacher or a professional in a clinical setting, I hope that you will feel that you can use visual schedules. For those of you who are new to CARD, welcome. If you're not registered with us, I will show you a slide in a minute that will show you how to register. But CARD seeks to provide support and assistance to families who have children of any age with autism, to people with autism, and to the professionals in our community who serve people with autism. We have offices in Miami-Dade, Broward, and Monroe County. Our main office is in Coral Gables at UM, and I work at the NSU satellite office in Davie, and we have branch offices in Miami Lakes, Miramar, and Homestead. We provide many different types of supports. Again, if you're not familiar with CARD, I just want to briefly mention what we do. We provide individual family support services where we will help you navigate the system. Everything we do is free. That's the best part. We'll help you navigate the system to find the help you need for your child. We also provide educational and consultative services where we provide a lot of different trainings, just like this one. We also have support groups. We have teen groups. So we do lots of different things. We provide technical assistance to various programs and schools in our community. We have a division that offers adult and transition services. We participate in a lot of community outreach and public awareness. And we also offer research opportunities. If you're not registered with us and you would like to be registered with us, you can go to this website, click on Contact Us, and you'll see where you can register with NSU CARD. If you are in Dade County, you'll be registered with our office. If you're in Broward County, you'll be registered with us up here at Nova. You can also hold up your phone to that QR code and it will take you to this website as well. If you are not signed up for our weekly newsletter, I highly recommend it. On our website, you can go to Community Outreach and you can sign up for our newsletter there. It's filled every week with amazing information about what's going on in our community. Sensory-friendly theater performances, various trainings and conferences, etc. So take a look at that. Also, we have our annual CARD conference. This will be our 30th. I can't believe it. Again, you can hold up your phone to that QR code and it will take you to the website to register. I highly recommend it if you're a professional or a parent. It's a great experience. You can also Google, CARD Conference 2023, and it will get you to the right place. All right, let's get down to our superpower information. So these are the questions we're going to answer today. What is a visual support? Why are visual supports so effective? What is a visual schedule? And how do I use a visual schedule? All right, so this is what we're going to cover today. Before we keep going, though, I would love to get input from you as to what is the roadblock. You know, some of you on here, we've discussed using visual schedule. You know, some of you are aware that at school, your children are using visual schedules. Some of you have tried using visual schedules, but haven't continued. What is it that stops you from using a visual schedule? Because in order for us to continue and talk about implementing the use of a visual schedule, we need to kind of address that elephant in the room, that you know, why aren't we using visual schedule? So that as we go on with our training, we can address those things. Does anybody want to volunteer to begin that dialogue? We're just for a couple minutes. Anybody?
I can say.
Yeah, go ahead, Zippy.
I don't know if my condition is the same like everyone, but I try to do the visual schedule, but I have little babies, so we all the time take it off from the wall, and that's very difficult to do that. So I need to put it on the counter on top, and every time to show my son the little picture. So it's look like it's not too much available for him because he cannot see it immediately, but I still didn't find the right way to do it, because all the picture all the time on the floor anytime, and they destroy that. So this is
that's a really good point. That's a really good that's something important for us all to remember, that like, you know, that it needs to be accessible to your son, but the baby has access to it too that way. And then he takes off the pictures and then it's all over the place and he can't use it. So let's see as we go if we can come up with an idea. And at the end, if we haven't addressed it yet, let's address that. Let's come up with a solution. Irma, did you want to give us a reason as to why a visual schedule doesn't happen?
Well, I do use it, but not consistently. And the reason why is I have so many different schedules for 4 different kids. And sometimes, you know, so it's really hard to keep it consistent. So that is my reason.
Yeah. Okay. So busyness, consistency, too many things going on to be able to use it consistently.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my reason.
That's real life, right? Both of you just suggested really good reasons as to why it's not happening. Anyone else want to share?
I'm working with some programs that have children with autism enrolled, and I also have a son with autism.
Okay.
And so the programs that I'm working with have similar issues, in that the schedule changes from day to day or week to week. It's an after-school program. And, you know, I said, well, you know, what do you have on your schedule on the wall? And they don't really have one because it changes so frequently.
Okay.
And they also are going from place to place and can't necessarily take something with them.
Okay. So portability is an issue. And then there's so many, like every day brings something different.
Everything's different. Yep.
And it's too difficult for them to navigate that. Okay. Excellent input. Well, let's keep going, and then let's come back to those roadblocks and let's see how we can get closer to resolution. All right. Hold on one second. All right. Okay, what is a visual support? A visual support is anything that an individual can see that supports them. And of course, the goal is to be independent. Our whole goal with using visual supports is to promote independence. If an individual can use something they can see that can help them do what they need to do or understand what they need to understand without a human being to tell them that information, that is independence. That is what we're all striving for our children. And if you think about it, we all use visual supports. I mean, I've looked at, it's 12:16 now. I've looked at my calendar 3 times today already. That's my visual support. And my phone is also sitting on my to-do list right next to me as I'm talking to you all. That's my visual support too. We all have these visual supports. So as you can see, these are examples of visual supports. We have a Robbie's schedule, and that's just text. That's a visual support. This one in the middle it's called a jig, and we use it to provide visual support for an individual to set a table by themselves. And then eventually we can fade that visual support. They'll know exactly where to place things when they're setting a table, but that's a visual support. If we didn't use that when teaching someone how to set the table, then a human being would have to stand next to the person setting the table and constantly be talking to them and telling them, okay, put the fork, okay, put the plate, okay, put the knife, okay, put the glass here. That's not going to promote independence or language comprehension. So that's a great example. The comment board all the way to the right is a visual support to help an individual access their language, to help them choose what they might say in a given situation. They can say, I like that ride. I don't like it. Let's ride again. I need to rest. Those are visual supports for communication. The bottom left one is a visual support that I used to use for a little girl in my classroom many years ago who would eat glue. And every time we did an art project, I put that on her desk. Now I could have stood next to her and I could have kept saying, no eating, don't eat the glue, no eating glue, don't eat the glue, don't eat the glue, don't eat. But what good is that going to do? That's not independence. So I put that on her desk. And when I saw her lifting the glue, I would just tap. And she learned she didn't need me anymore after a while to tap on that visual cue. I put it on her desk and it was support enough. And then this last visual support is a calendar showing a student when they have homework and when they don't. Because for this particular student, homework was causing a lot of anxiety. So we were able to show them, this is when you have homework and this is when you don't. And it helped them a great deal to understand life. We use visual supports for many different reasons: to organize time, to promote independent functioning, to communicate behavioral expectations, for motivational systems, to promote academic learning and communication skills, to communicate social rules and social expectations, to organize work, and to provide information. Today, we're going to talk about the visual supports that organize time. We're going to talk about visual schedules only. Why are visual supports so effective? Now, in this 2014 compilation of research studies about evidence-based practices for people with autism, this is the list of evidence-based strategies and interventions. And as you can see where I put the red arrow, visual supports are there. We have evidence to support using visual supports. And so this tells us even more, we need to use visual supports with individuals to help them understand what we expect of them, how to be independent, and to teach them the language that they need. Visual supports promote opportunities for interaction and communication, because if we clarify for individuals with autism what is expected of them, there's more brain space to focus on engaging with others and using language. That's our ultimate goal. Visual supports increase clarity of what we expect from individuals. Visual supports increase comprehension. They increase predictability. It helps individuals predict what's coming. Visual supports increase structure in our environment and finally promote independence. And on the other side, on the flip side, visual supports decrease fear, anxiety, and surprises because they increase all of those other things. And because we see a decrease in fear, anxiety, and surprises, we see a decrease in challenging behaviors. And so when we have challenging behaviors, of course, we always have to think about what the function of that behavior is, but we always have to think about what kind of visual supports we can put into place to help the individual who's displaying the challenging behavior. This is a quote that really had an impact on my career, so I just want to share it with you. Linda Hodgdon is known as the mom of visual strategies. Over 2 decades ago, she really became the advocate for using visual supports. And so she said, visual tools change the situation. Speech is transient. That means it moves. Speech disappears immediately after it is spoken. In fact, the spoken words can actually be completely gone. This is so important. Before the student's brain even registers that you said something. When we use visuals for autism, those visual tools remain present as long as necessary for the student to focus his or her attention and then take in the information. That had such an impact on me because I realized as a teacher that when I was speaking to my students, by the time they could actually focus and process what I was saying, perhaps they only could process the last word I said. And then they lost the rest of the message. Visual tools paired with my verbal speech was very helpful in helping my students process what they needed to. So again, very meaningful and powerful statement. Why did I show you this at the beginning of our training? This is your visual schedule. I included this to show you exactly what to expect today. Because if I didn't, you might sit there wondering, what is Lori going to talk about? How long will this take? How much more are we going to do? You might feel a little nervous about an appointment you have coming up soon, and will you make it? But this way, you know exactly what to expect. And hopefully I've decreased anxiety and increased your comprehension in what to expect today. So what is a visual schedule? Let's look at a whole bunch of examples. I do see that there are some messages in the chat box. And when I'm done, I promise you I'm going to look at all those messages. And then we'll, if there are any questions there, we'll talk. So there are 2 kinds of visual schedules that we can use. One is like a full day schedule from beginning to end, or like a very large chunk of the day. So at school, the schedule might be from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. At home, you might have a schedule that shows the entire day, or you might have a schedule that shows what needs to be done before going to school, or a schedule that is from 2 p.m. until bedtime. Okay, so that's like a daily schedule. A mini schedule is a schedule that only shows what's going to take place in part of that daily schedule. And I'm going to show you an example of that. But for example, at home, my maybe full day schedule might include waking up, get dressed, eat breakfast, put your shoes on, get in the car, school. Come home, snack, homework, play outside, bath time, dinner, etc. A mini schedule might be what's going to take place just in homework time. So I would have my full day schedule, and then I would have a mini schedule that might say language arts, math, spelling, because those are the things we're going to do during homework. All right. This is an example of my daily schedule when I had my classroom 24 years ago. This is still a very important intervention. So this was my daily schedule, but then I also showed a mini schedule about what was going to take place during shared reading time, because this helped my students understand what we were going to do in shared reading. And for some of them, sitting in a group reading a book all together was a little hard. So knowing exactly what to expect helped them sit through the whole thing. This is another example of a schedule. This just shows bedtime routine. Now, if I was making this for a family, I would make this so that I could Velcro these pictures on and remove them as we went. But for training purposes, I'm just showing you like a PDF version of this. This is another one. This is what we need to do before we go outside. And this schedule was made also using lesson picks. Lesson picks is a very inexpensive online program that you can use. I want to say it's like $36 a year. And you can make all kinds of schedules. This one, you cut, where it says cut there, and you fold. So instead of removing these pictures, you fold it down as you go. So you've gone to the bathroom, you fold it down, that's finished. Okay, what's next? We put our shoes, you fold it down, etc. I'm just showing you various examples. This is a visual schedule that would show what we're doing on a field trip, going to the zoo. Now this could be used at school, but this could also be adjusted to be used, at home. If you're going with family on the weekend to the zoo, making a schedule to help your child know exactly what to expect could be very helpful. Again, this schedule uses a checklist. So as you go, you check it off. But we can also make schedules that are Velcroed so that you take it off as you go. You can also just cross out the picture, whatever works for you. This is a schedule for after school. This is what we do when we get home. Homework time. This is what we need to do when we get home. Again, my responsibilities. This might be used for a child who loves dinosaurs and they need that extra little motivation. visual schedules need to be individualized for people who are using them. And so in this case, if the child needs motivation to come and check the schedule and use the schedule, we would use a dinosaur. Again, visual schedules need to meet the needs of each child. So we might choose specific pictures, symbols, use specific words for each individual child. So these pictures are not in order, but I just wanted to show you like very rudimentary way of using visual schedules. So if this was in order, it might look something like we come home, we work, then you get to watch Disney. Then you have speech therapy, and then you get to watch Disney. And then we finish our homework, and then you get to watch Disney. Then we have dinner, bath, and we go to sleep, etc. So as you can see, I made this one for a family, we Velcroed it onto a file folder. And this might be helpful. For example, if you can't post this on a wall lower down, I know you would still have to, get it and give it to your child. But, if there are other family members who might remove it from the wall, this might be an option. Not perfect, but it's an option. Here's another one. Getting ready for bed. And then also this is a mini schedule for toothbrushing that we might post in the bathroom. And also for some children, we could just use that. For other children, we need it to be removable so that you're getting your toothbrush, you take it off. Put toothpaste, take it off. Brush your teeth, take it off. Rinse your mouth, take it off, all done. All right. I showed you this one. This one was made for a student who was anxious about homework. So we showed them a visual schedule of when homework would be given. This is a visual schedule, as you can tell, with no words, that was used for a little boy in a preschool who needed to be taught how to play with toys. Because when he came to school, he would roam around the classroom and really not do anything. And he wasn't happy doing that. So we discovered that perhaps he didn't know how to play with toys. And so we taught him how to play with toys using this schedule. When he came into his classroom, he had to put his water bottle away, put his lunchbox in the lunchbox bin, and put his backpack away. And then we would take out this schedule and say, oh, look, first, we're going to play with the musical instruments. And we would set a timer. We played with him with the musical instruments for a little bit. And then we took it off and we said, okay, we're all done with musical instruments. What's next? It's time to play with our animals and the zoo. And we would play, we would set a timer. So we would play with the animals until the timer rang. And eventually we didn't need to use the timer because he would just play. And then he would say, gave us an indication that it was time to check the schedule again. He was done playing with that toy. And we expanded his repertoire of playing with toys, which for some kids with autism is a challenge. So this was a play schedule. He was not a reader. We wanted to simplify by just showing just the toy, that way. And he learned the skill and it was hugely successful. You can also use this type of concept at home. So we made this schedule for school, but this is something that you can use at home to teach play skills, to help organize playtime. This was a visual schedule that I made for a dad who came to me many years ago and told me the dad looked exhausted. And he told me that every day after school, when he picked his son up from school, he had to take his son to Chick-fil-A, Toys R Us, and then to swim. And if he didn't, his son would display some very challenging behavior. And so every single day, the dad was taking him to Chick-fil-A, Toys R Us, and to swim. And so what we did was we showed his son that he could still do those things, but every day would be one of those things. And so if Monday was swimming day, we could show him before he got upset, and look, tomorrow we get to go to Toys R Us. And then look, the next day is Chick-fil-A. So this really helped the dad organize their time and to show his son what they would be doing. It helped calm the little boy because he could see, it was almost like a visual contract that, okay, today I can't go to Toys R Us and Chick-fil-A, but tomorrow I can go to Toys R Us because it was on my schedule. This is just another way to make a visual schedule. We use library cards, which I don't even think are used in libraries anymore, but I think you can still buy these. And then we just, instead of Velcroing, we just turned it around. Again, it was just a different way of presenting a visual schedule. A first then board is a little mini schedule. First, we're going to do art, and then you get to play. Here's another example. So let's talk about how you use a visual schedule. So I'm going to talk about using a visual schedule, let's say in school, but everything I'm going to tell you applies to home as well. So you have your daily visual schedule or a visual schedule that represents part of a day, okay? So in this case, we are at school, and at the beginning of our day, we're going to review the entire schedule. This is what we're going to do today, everyone. And we're going to, look at all the pictures and label them. Then we're going to go back to the first activity, and it's circle time. So we're going to say, okay, it's time for circle time. We're going to end and begin each activity by looking at our visual schedule. So after circle time, we're going to go back to our visual schedule and we're going to say, circle time is finished. If you're at home, you might say, breakfast is finished. What's next? You point to the next activity. The next activity is playground, and you say, now it's time to go to the playground. And you're going to repeat step 3 for every single activity. So after every activity, you're gathering back around the visual schedule. You're referring to the visual schedule. At the end of the day, I personally like to show each picture to review the day's activities. I think that it promotes language, it promotes recall, it promotes sequencing, and it's just a nice way to tie up the day. So let's look at what this looks like, in detail. Okay, so again, this is a schedule that I might use in a classroom, but this same process is applied in your home. Okay, so I'm going to say to my students, let's look at what we're going to do today. First, we came to school, and that's all done. So we're going to remove arrival from the visual schedule. The next thing we're going to do is morning centers. And then we're going to have snack. And then we have recess. And after recess, we will have circle time and afternoon centers. And then we're going to have lunch. And what's next? That's right. We're going to take naps. We're going to rest And then after that, we're going to have story time. And then guess what? Our day is finished. We're going to go home. Then I'm going to go back because the next thing on my schedule is morning centers. So I'm going to say, all right, get ready. Let's start morning centers. When we're all done with morning centers, we're going to come back to the schedule. We're all done with morning centers and I remove it. So your schedule is going to look like this. All right, everyone, get ready for snack. Who's my snack helper today? When we're all done with snack, I say, we're all done with snack time. Raise your hand if you loved the pineapple we ate today, or if you loved the cookie we ate today. All right, snack time is finished. We remove snack. Now it's time for recess. If you're wearing red today, please line up. That shouldn't say read, that should say red. And you keep going throughout the whole day following that process. So by the end of the day, story time is all done. Your schedule that is posted for everyone to see should look like this. We remove story time from this schedule and I say, we're all done today. Now it's time to go home. But before we get ready to line up to go to carpool, let's look at what we did today. And I would go through the entire schedule. I would hold up each activity in the order of how we did it, and we would review it. We did so many things today. First, we came to school and we got ready for our day. Then we had morning centers, snack, recess, circle time, afternoon centers, lunch, and nap time. When we woke up, we had story time. The book we read was so funny, and now we're going home. This is so important for our kids. And when you do this with your children at home, eventually they'll be able to participate in that recap. And it's really, really important to teach them how to do that. We have to explicitly teach our children how to use visual schedules. Just using them is not going to be enough. So one, we have to be consistent and we have to use it. We have to model for them. We also, though, need to model the language that we use when we use a visual schedule. And part of that is using that voice in our heads that we all use, that guides us as we might use a visual schedule. So I'm not going to just look at the visual schedule, remove something, and go on to the next activity. I'm gathering my child back to the visual schedule, and I'm voicing out loud, okay, our cooking activity is done. Now we get to eat. And I am being very explicit about the language I'm saying out loud as I'm using the visual schedule. I'm also going to be explicit in the language that I'm saying out loud. I would be sometimes using my inner voice. We all have that inner voice, inner speech that we use, but we want to show our student, our child, that we can use that language to problem solve. So if our visual schedule says we're going for a bike ride, but it's pouring rain, you're going to model out loud the process that goes on in our head. So you can teach your child to do the same thing. So you might say, what's next on our schedule? It says bike ride, but look outside, it's pouring rain. What am I gonna do? I know. I'm gonna look at my pictures and see what else I can put on the schedule. And then maybe later when it stops raining, maybe we'll be able to add bike ride back onto our schedule. And if I can't, we'll do it tomorrow. So that teaching explicitly out loud how we're problem solving when we're using the visual schedule is very important for our kids. So remember, direct instruction is required. We can't just use visual schedules and expect our children to understand. We have to be consistent. We have to use our schedules as frequently as possible. Now, we spoke about, we might have multiple children using multiple schedules. You may want to consider using a system. If you have multiple children in your home using schedules, you may want to, just like in my classroom, I had 9 children using individual schedules. And so it is possible at home to have various schedules. You can put each one on a clipboard, and each child's name is at the top of the clipboard. So each child has their schedule. You might need a master list of what you put on that schedule in case someone takes something off and you don't know where that picture came from. But it might help you be more consistent. So that's an option that might be able to help. We also need to remember that motivation might be necessary for some of our kids. And so, for example, each time a child goes to check their schedule and transitions to that next activity, they might earn a happy face. They might earn a point. They might earn a ticket. And then when they have all the tickets from the day's activities or from a few activities, they earn a reinforcer. But we might need to add that motivation in there. And then the last thing is we need to remember, you have to think about what language you're going to use. What works for you in your home? Are you going to say, let's check our schedule? Are you going to say, what do we have next? What language are you going to use when there has to be a change? Are you going to say something like, that won't work, we need to change our schedule? Or are you going to say, we have to pick a new schedule? What are the words that you're going to use in your home that works for you and your child? A few more things to consider. I always feel the need to just clarify this. So the picture on the left is a visual schedule. The picture on the right is a picture of the Picture Exchange Communication System. We also call that PECS. Sometimes people refer to both as a visual schedule or both as PECS, but they are both used for different things. And the reason people sometimes get confused is very often we use the same symbol software to make visual schedules or to make PECS. But a visual schedule organizes time. PECS is a system that helps an individual communicate. The person who is using that system to talk, to communicate, will take a picture off of that board and hand it to someone as if it is a word that they're saying. And the listener receives it as a word like that they just heard. So that's a communication system for communication purposes. A visual schedule only organizes our time. Just an important distinction. Another thing, this is an absolute myth. Discontinue using a visual schedule because the schedule will become a crutch. The schedule will result in dependence, and the schedule cannot be used forever all over town. That is a myth. That is not true. That would be like me saying, okay, I got glasses. I can finally see. Oh, but I don't want my eyes to depend on this visual support to help me see. So I better not wear my glasses. I should just let my eyes get used to it. That's not fair. If visual supports, such as a visual schedule, helps your child we must use it because our goal is independence. And the more independent our child can be, the more they understand about expectations, the more they understand what they need to do, the more brain space there will be to focus on the important things we want them to learn, like language. And that's why we're talking about this in Language Links. If you're making a visual schedule on your own, and also remember that your CARD clinician is available to help you make a visual schedule. We can make that for you. But if you're going to make one on your own, keep in mind some things when you're choosing the symbols you're choosing. Make sure that there's only one object that shows the meaning of that symbol. So if the visual is, we're going to play soccer, that visual on the bottom left is not good. There are too many distractors and things going on. It could be misunderstood. Instead, just the soccer ball is helpful. So eliminate that background, eliminate the distraction. Whatever symbol you choose should be universally understood. We have to individualize symbols, so you have to make sure that your child will understand those symbols. And we have to be sure to make it as clear as possible to avoid misunderstandings. If you have a child who can read, we have some children who are reading at 18 months. But even if your child is older and reading, we have to remember that not all children who can read understand that text. And so for those children, they still might benefit from having pictures or symbols there to support the comprehension of the language and the text. And then you also might consider that some children will just be fine with text. It's totally fine. Our visual schedules can have various formats, and you have to do what works for your child. You can have just pictures, you can have just text, you can have bigger pictures with smaller text, bigger text with smaller pictures. You can have objects on a schedule, an object schedule, we call it, instead of just pictures. You can have photos instead of line drawings. So we can do anything. The format needs to be meaningful for your child. This is an example of a visual schedule that was made by a family member of mine who quickly had to make a visual schedule to get to a bar mitzvah that we had in our family. And when she arrived, I saw her checking off her visual schedule. This is just text. This worked really well for her kids. Again, you can see just text. One was, Robbie's schedule was laminated and we used a dry erase marker and he just checked it off. And the one on the right, we took off using Velcro. This is another one, another example where you can check off or you can highlight or cross off. Again, any way that works. This is an example of one that might make the text much bigger than the larger symbol. When you're thinking about creating your visual schedule, you have to think about these things. What format is my schedule going to take? How much time will my schedule cover? Are you going to do a full day? Are you just going to do it from, when they get home from school? On the weekend, are you going to do, maybe it's too much for you to do it all day. Maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to be consistent and use my visual schedule, but I'm only going to use it in the morning on the weekend. That's a good start. Will you include, how will you indicate that an activity is finished? Are you going to cross it off, take it off using Velcro? There's so many ways to show this. Are you going to include symbols only, symbols and text, just text, objects, photos or symbols? Which symbol set? There's so many out there. There's Mayor Johnson's board maker. There's lesson picks, which I showed you earlier. You can use images you find online. There's so many different things you can do, and you can also take your own photos. Will you include the clock time on the schedule? Sometimes we make visual schedules that have the time next to that activity, and that works for some kids, but for other kids, it's a horrible idea because they get stuck on the time. And if our cooking activity at home is supposed to end by 5 o'clock and it's 5:02, you might get some anxiety and some challenging behavior. So it might be better not to include the time and to build in some flexibility. And how will the schedule indicate last minute changes? If you're supposed to cook, or you're supposed to bake cookies and you suddenly realize you don't have one of the ingredients and you're not going to be able to bake right then when your schedule said, what are you going to do? How are you going to address it? Are you going to add going to the supermarket into your schedule? Are you going to not bake at all and do a different activity? So you have to think about those things. Visuals fail when students don't understand the symbols or the text, when they don't include the right information, and when they're not used. When I go into a classroom and I look at the visual supports that are present, if the visual is bright, shiny, gorgeous, I know it's not being used. But if the corners are tattered and it looks all chewed up and it looks all bent, that's when I know that a visual support is being used. Consistency is hard. I know that. But some consistency is better than nothing. And so I would like to encourage you to use it as much as you can. There might be days when you can be more consistent than others. Do it. Do whatever you can. So when we think about those roadblocks, when I stop the recording, we'll talk about whether some of the suggestions I made works for you or not. But think about for a minute those roadblocks that we talked about at the beginning. What stops us? We have another family, another child or a family member who's touching the visual schedule and taking the pictures off, so it's not working for the child who needs the visual schedule. Consistency is a problem. There's more than one child in the family who needs a visual schedule. It makes it really hard. So what can we do to help those roadblocks? We'll talk about those solutions in a minute when I turn off the recording. And I hope that when you leave today, you have some ideas as to how you can overcome those roadblocks. And again, we are not striving for perfection. We're striving just to get closer and closer to getting better at using this evidence-based strategy. So what I want you to take away today is a visual support can help our children understand what to expect and what is expected of them. A visual schedule makes life predictable, and that helps all of us. Then we feel calm. So a predictable life is calming. And making a visual schedule part of your everyday routine is helpful to everyone. So this is not just for children with autism. This helps everyone. I'm going to turn off the recording in one moment, and I'm going to open up the floor for questions. But if you would, can you please put up your phone to this QR code? And it will take you on your phone to an evaluation. You'll choose visual schedules, October 13th, and just, if you would, quickly fill out the evaluation. You might need me to put this link into the chat box, and I will. And once I turn off the recording, I will also,
Lori, I'm using my phone, so I can't put my phone.
okay, yeah. I'm gonna put it, the website into, can I do that? Give me 1 second. Okay, so it doesn't give you today's date. There's nothing for the 13th. It still says 10/6. If you only see 10/6, then just do that. All right. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn off the recording, and then I'm going to put the link in the chat box. Give me 1 second.
Does this